And the reason I have a passion for it is, ever since the time I was in high school, through college, through my time in the U.S. Army, I was in the Army Reserve for 8 years, and then through more than 26 years of professional life as an engineer, I've seen more examples than I can tell you of the good impact of good leadership, to make positive, good leadership, and I've also, unfortunately, seen a lot of examples of poor leadership and kind of the negative consequences that come from that. And not only that, I've seen the negative things that come when there is a vacuum of leadership, where there's no leadership. So leadership is important. I've seen that in my life, in almost every avenue of my life. Well, believe it or not, you're a leader. You may not know that, you may not recognize it, but you are. You're in a unique position in your life. Someone's looking to you, maybe more than one person is looking to you. You're a leader, I'm a leader. The question is, are we going to use the opportunities that we have in our life right now? Are we going to use them for good or for bad? Or are we not going to use them at all? Or we just ignore them? We don't want to do that. What am I going to do tonight? I'm going to give you quickly 10 what I think of as rules for leadership. And I'm going to walk through them pretty quickly, but I think if you use these, just one or two, even better if you use all 10, your capacity for success, your ability to be a leader in your life, I think will be greatly improved. Before I do that, though, before I launch into those, I'm just going to give you a quick biographical sketch of the part of my life that I think is really relevant to these 10 rules for leadership. You see, I'm a runner. Here we go, I got some pictures to look at. Hold it, hold it. I told you, I'm a runner. That's how I think of myself. Now, I chose this particular picture because I chose a picture where at least I think that I look good. Look at I am up there. I look long, fluid stride. Look at I'm relaxed. I'm flexibility in the ankles. I got a determined look on my face, but I'm relaxed. You know, if you're doing that when you're running, it's not real good. My hands are relaxed. Everything's great. It looks like I'm having a good time going. Well, but you can't see by looking at this picture. This was at the LA Marathon a few years ago. I like to run that. This one. The picture doesn't tell you is this mile 3. Not quite how I look at the end of the race. As a matter of fact, if you go to the end of the race, that's kind of how I look now. Well, come on. 26.2 miles, that is a long, long way. I ran my first marathon when I was 38 years old. That was 12 years ago. You don't want to do the arithmetic right away. You know how old I am. By some miracle, even though I looked like this guy at the end of the race, I actually enjoyed it. I loved it, as a matter of fact. And so I kept on running. Run marathons and then 10Ks. And I just enjoy it. Even when I'm not trained for a race, I just go down. We live in El Segundo. I just go down to the beach and I run. I just love being down there. So the problem is, once you run for a while, you start to get a little cocky about it. You know, you strive, you've run several marathons. And so now you start to look down at other people that don't run, or even if they run, you think of them as lazy if they're not running at least, like 10 miles a day. But here's the problem. So after a while, you think you're an accomplished runner, and I did. And so then what you do is you got to do the next step. Triathlons. That was the next step for me. And unlike this guy that's laying down here, I actually didn't care. So I had to learn how to swim. I wasn't a very good swimmer. I had to learn how to bike. I already knew how to bike. I knew how to bike 112 miles. But I'm going to tell you, that's a big step up in terms of degree of difficulty. Running's easy. This triathlon thing is pretty difficult. But for me, as the difficulty increases, there's always an underlying benefit. You know what it is? I can eat more. I love to eat. So you run a marathon, you need a big cheeseburger. You go to a triathlon, you eat the cheeseburger, chili dog, some chili cheese fries, maybe 3 or 4 chocolate chip cookies for dessert. Oh, I love it. Oh. Well, the thing is, though, you do love running, but sometimes you love it when it's over. You know what the problem is? It does make you feel uncomfortable. Running does make you feel uncomfortable. But there are so many benefits. Just Google, if you remember, when you get home, Google the word endorphins sometime. Endorphins are awesome. Actually, you know what, sometimes I love running. You want to know why? Just because it is hard. That's why I love it. Of course, sometimes it's a little too hard. It's a little too hard, and when you do something hard, sometimes there's a little risk. This isn't me, by the way. I don't want you to think this is me. Not that I'm not capable of it. The reason I've never done that is that I've never tried to fly him out. But this guy, he might have been better off just having a slower transition time when he was trying to get to his bike. Well, let me tell you, marathons, triathlons, half marathons, even 10Ks, they do have their ups and downs. And that brings me to my 10 rules for leaders tonight. All these rules come directly, and that's why I wanted to show you these images. All these rules come directly from my experience with racing, doing marathons or triathlons. And by the way, they work for an Ironman. You know what an Ironman is? They work for Ironman, they work for marathons, but you know what? These 10 rules work even better in real life. Rule number 1, and remember this is supposed to be inspirational. Expect pain. Expect pain. You say, what, Tom, why are you starting with that? Expect pain. I think it's supposed to be inspirational. Well, the scene you're looking at up here, this is really actually not a very rare scene at all in Ironman. There's these two guys, by the way, these two guys are professionals, so they know what they're doing. And they just crossed the finish line, and they're miserable. And they're professionals. They're exhausted. You know what? It hurts to do these races. I've never been in a race where I wasn't, at least at some point in time, very uncomfortable, very tired. Here's another picture. Guess who this is? This is Paula Newby-Fraser. Who's Paula Newby-Fraser? She's a 7-time Ironman world champion. 7 times. She's a champion. This is her at the 1995 Kona World Championships. That's the Ironman race. It's the World Championships. This picture was taken when she was less than 400 yards from the finish line. Less than 400 yards. And you know what happened? She hit you've all heard of the wall. She hit the dreaded wall. And you know what? If you saw the video, you can Google this. You can actually watch a video. And it's uncomfortable to watch because she staggers along for a few yards. You can hear she's incoherent. She can't think straight. It looks like she needs an ambulance. Matter of fact, a bunch of people rush up and want to get an ambulance to her. She's in a lot of pain, but she hit the wall. So Paula Newby-Fraser was in pain. You know what I learned from that? Even champions aren't exempt. Now I'm talking about life. Even champions, none of us, you're not exempt, I'm not exempt. None of us are exempt from dealing with pain sometimes or setbacks. So you want to be a leader? Expect some pain sometimes and be prepared to deal with it. I'll be very personal with you. This is how it happened in my life. Back in 1997, I went to the doctor. The doctor said to me, Tom, you have a brain tumor. See this scar on my head? Starts here about one ear, goes right across the top of my head, goes right down to the other ear. The doc said, you got to bring your wife to the doctor's office. This is serious. This could be cancer. Wow, that's unexpected. Let me tell you what this staggered me. One of the reasons it staggered me, well, obviously the reason it staggered me because it's serious. But one of the reasons it staggered me is I always expected everything in my life to go smoothly. No bumps. I had wonderful parents, a wonderful family, grew up in a wonderful town. Never had anything bad happen to me. So all of a sudden at the age of 31, having a doctor tell me I have a brain tumor. I didn't react well at all because I wasn't expecting anything ever bad happening in life. And so what did I do? I took it out on my family. I was grumpy with my family. I panicked inwardly. I got depressed. I lay awake at night in my bed and look up at the ceiling. Guess what the ceiling looks like at night, in the middle of the night? It's black. There's no answers up there. Sorry, you don't get any answers. But for me, I was fortunate. God was good to me. I didn't have a cancerous brain tumor. I had surgery, they cut it out. I asked the doctor afterwards, because you're always curious, there's several layers of skin. They cut from ear to ear, then they peel your scalp back, and then they take a little tiny specialized saw, they drill a hole like a little disc. They take it out and they put some special tools in there, they mess around with your brain, they pull it out. And then they put that little manhole cover back on there. With little holes drilled in it, around the outside of the manhole cover, and then they suture it up, and they sew it back up, and then they put staples in your head, it looked like Frankenstein. I've often thought many times though, boy, Tom, you should have dealt with that better. And why didn't you? Well, because I was surprised. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be surprised if life throws you a few curveballs. Remember that as a leader, it's not going to be easy. That's rule number 1. Because the way you meet your reverses is you don't meet them with panic or surprise or some kind of feeling of victimhood. You know how you deal with reverses or things that happen in your life that you want to have happen. And you buck yourself up and have a good attitude about it. Face it head on. That's rule number one. Rule number two, there are no do-overs, but there are second chances. That comes right from racing, too. You know what? I signed up for Ironman Utah back in 2012, did all my training, got all ready, spent all this money, went up to St. George, Utah. Started the race, and 5 minutes into the race, that's the image you see up on the screen now. That's what the water looked like that day. The sea was angry that day, my friends. Big wind came up. And you know what happened to me? All my hopes of finishing the race, all that training, all that time, I was an epic failure that day. Not only did I not finish the race, I never got out of that. I spent about 2.5 hours in the water, and finally some nice guy with a boat came along and fished me out like a drowned rat. All that time, I was like, wow. So you know what I did? As soon as I got out of the boat, I marched up to the race director and I started yelling at him. This was not fair. I trained in a swimming pool. I didn't plan for all these waves. This wind came out of nowhere. You didn't tell me the wind was going to be here. You have to stop all the racers, and we're going to do this over again tomorrow. No, I didn't do that, did I? Why didn't I? Because there were 1,600 people competing in this race, and there were only about 500 of us that didn't finish the swim. Who am I to tell the 1,100 people that were strong enough swimmers that they finished that the race has to stop and you have to wait for me to do it tomorrow? Life, you know what? Life doesn't work that way either. But here's the good news. You always get some second chances, or you can make second chances for yourself. So what I did was, instead of do the whole sulking victimhood thing that I did when I had a brain tumor, I just signed up for another race. And guess what happened? 3 months later, that's me. I love that picture. It's me crossing the finish line. I finished the Ironman. Don't clap too hard because I was slow. You see the finish time up there? That's 15 hours. Now don't cheat me out of 8 minutes. I was in wave 5, so I started 8 minutes after that clock started. 15 hours, 9 minutes. I'm proud of every single minute and second of that race. There's a lesson in that, though, ladies and gentlemen. You can make second chances for yourself because you know what? You're going to make mistakes. Life's not going to be fair to you all the time. If you're a leader, you can't just give up. You have to move on. Make a second chance for yourself. You get a second chance. Rule number 3. This goes right along with 2. You got to be stubborn. Stubborn. Anything worthwhile in life requires commitment. You're going to find that. You probably already know that. Anything worthwhile that you do in life takes commitment. I know that you're learning that this weekend. It's not easy. You want to run 26.2 miles? You want to cover the 140.6 miles of an Ironman race? You don't just show up on that day and do it. You got to work hard. I mean, my marathon training cycles last about 5 months. An Ironman training cycle lasts closer to a year. You can ask my wife and kids. I'd be gone all day on a Saturday, biking and then running. Ask President Obama, is being a leader easy? Ask the CEO of a major company. Ask any squad leader in the U.S. Army or in the Army. Is it easy to lead other people? Absolutely not. You have to learn to appreciate delayed gratification. You have to work at things. Be willing to take gratification at the end when you've achieved your goal. Think of Rotary International. Joe Harding taught me this. Rotary International had a goal years and years ago. I didn't know the exact number. It might have been 30 or 40 years ago. Let's eradicate polio from the earth, from the planet. And a few years ago, they got down to there was just 4 countries left, starting with P-A-I-N, pain. You all know this. Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nigeria. You know what? Now we're down to PA, down to just 2. You think that happened without any commitment? Absolutely not. So you have to be stubborn in a good way. One more image. The image you're going to see now, there's 2 ladies, Shawn Welch and Wendy Ingraham. This is at another Ironman championship race. This is in 1997. What are they doing? They're crawling to the finish line. They both hit the wall, just like Paul and Louis Frazier. They're still scratching and clawing for the finish line. That's a good kind of stubborn. You've got to be stubborn to be successful in life. Rule number 4, you need a plan. Let me ask you something. Where are you going in life? As a leader, where are you trying to take your group? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you do with your life? I'll tell you, as an endurance athlete, I meticulously plan, all marathoners and triathletes, we meticulously plan our schedules.